Welcome back to Stone to Moon. Right now, as you watch this video, massive machines are grinding away at the bottom of the ocean, erasing a history that belongs to us. They are not just building islands, they are burying the truth. There is a specific reason why China is bulldozing archaeological sites in the West Philippine Sea, and it is terrifyingly simple. The artifacts found on those reefs prove that everything they have told the world is a lie. I have the proof they are desperate to hide. But first, I need you to imagine a scenario. Picture waking up tomorrow morning to the sound of construction. You look out your window and see that your neighbor has knocked down your fence, poured concrete over your garden, and stationed armed guards on your lawn. When you run out to scream, "This is my property!" they don't apologize. Instead, they pull out a map they drew yesterday with a magic marker and say, "No, look at this line. This land has always been mine." This sounds like a nightmare, but for the Philippines, this is reality. This is exactly what is happening in the South China Sea. One of the most aggressive land grabs in human history is unfolding in real time. China is claiming dominion over nearly 90% of this massive body of water, an area bigger than the Mediterranean Sea. And to justify this theft, they are destroying the only thing that proves them wrong: the 2,000-year-old evidence of who was actually there first. In 2016, the world watched as an international tribunal at The Hague delivered a crushing blow to Beijing's claims. They looked at the maps, the laws, and the history, and they ruled that China's claim had zero legal basis. It was a victory for the truth. But then, something strange started happening, almost immediately after that ruling. The evidence started to disappear. We know that the reefs in the Spratlys and Scarborough Shoal were not just rocks, they were time capsules. For centuries, these shoals were the resting places of ancient shipwrecks, pottery, and artifacts that proved Southeast Asian sailors were the masters of these waters. But suddenly, dredging ships appeared. These weren't just construction vessels, they were erasers. Operating 24 hours a day, they began to chew up the seabed. They didn't just build on top of the reefs, they pulverized them. They destroyed coral systems that had taken thousands of years to grow. And with them, they destroyed the physical proof of Filipino heritage. You have to ask yourself, why would a superpower need to destroy the seafloor? You only destroy evidence when it contradicts your story. To understand what we are losing, we have to travel back in time, long before the Philippines was even named. As far back as 200 AD, the ancestors of the Tagalog and Visayan people were already navigating these currents. We aren't guessing about this. We have the receipts. Archaeological digs in Palawan and pottery recovered from these very waters prove that Filipino seafarers were fishing, trading, and living here for 2 millennia. The irony is that China's own history betrays them. Ancient texts from the Han Dynasty mention the South China Sea, but they describe it as a foreign route, a place they passed through to get somewhere else, not a place they owned. Meanwhile, during the great empires of Srivijaya and Majapahit in the 10th century, Filipino traders were already using Scarborough Shoal as a regular stop. We even have the oral history. In fishing villages across Zambales and Pangasinan, stories have been passed down for 70 generations. Grandfathers taught grandsons the secret names of the reefs, the movement of the fish, and the patterns of the storms. This is knowledge that can only be earned by living in a place for thousands of years. But in 2012, that chain was broken. China sent its armada to Scarborough Shoal and blocked the fishermen from their own ancestral waters. Families that had survived on these seas for centuries watched their livelihood vanish overnight. So, what is their justification? They point to the infamous 9-line. If you look at a modern Chinese map, you will see a U-shaped line that swallows the entire ocean, coming within a few miles of the Philippine coast while staying hundreds of miles away from China. They act like this line is an ancient, sacred border. But here is the secret they don't want you to know. That line is a modern fiction. It didn't exist in ancient times. It first appeared in 1947. Think about that, your grandmother is older than China's historic claim. It was drawn by a government that fled to Taiwan just 2 years later. And get this, originally it had 11 dashes. Then they erased 2 and made it 9. A real historical border doesn't change shape every time the political wind blows. Under international law, specifically the UN Convention on the Law of the Sea, countries have an exclusive economic zone of 200 nautical miles. By this law, Scarborough Shoal belongs to the Philippines. It is 124 miles from Luzon. It is over 500 miles from China. The math doesn't lie. So they had to change the equation. They decided that if they couldn't win with the law, they would win with concrete. Starting around 2013, the strategy shifted from drawing lines to building bases. This was the beginning of the island-building apocalypse. They took reefs like Mischief Reef and Fairy Cross, places that were barely above water at high tide, and transformed them into military fortresses. They brought in massive dredgers that sucked up sand and coral from the bottom and sprayed it onto the surface. We are talking about millions of tons of material. But this wasn't just sand, it was history. Marine archaeologists had previously identified these exact spots as holding artifacts from the 12th to the 15th century. They found stone tools, ceramics, and boat wreckage that proved the Philippines was there first. Now, those artifacts are crushed under 3 kilometers of runway. They are buried under radar domes, missile batteries, and aircraft hangars. They literally paved over history to build a parking lot for fighter jets. When the Philippines protested, Beijing said these were just civilian facilities for weather research. But you don't need anti-aircraft missiles to study the weather. They have tried to delete the evidence, but they failed. The reefs may be buried, but the truth is scattered in museums, in university archives, and in the logbooks of Spanish sailors from the 1700s who documented the Filipino presence. The truth lives in the memories of the fishermen who refuse to forget. This is not just a fight over rocks and water. This is a fight for the memory of who we are. They want to rewrite the past to control the future. Specifically the $5 trillion in trade that passes through these waters every year. But as long as we keep telling the story, they cannot win. If this story made your blood boil, hit that like button to help us break the algorithm. Share your thoughts in the comments below. Does history belong to the one with the biggest bulldozers, or the one with the deepest roots? Subscribe to Stone to Moon and ring the bell, because we are going to keep digging up the truth they try to bury.